All right, we are live. Welcome to another edition of Elevate Your Grind, brought to you by the Cannabis Lab. I am your host, Todd Rosales, and this is a late night for me. We usually do these shows at 5. I'm trying to spend a little bit more time with my family, so we did this one a little bit later. But we also have a guest who's with us from the West Coast, not the East Coast. I'm on the East Coast, so it's nice. It's a nice, lovely afternoon where she is. I'm very excited about this guest because she has roots with Cannabis Lab well deeper than I do. She's been in the industry since legal inception, if not longer. She knows all the ins and outs, and probably as far as podcasting and the way our styles are, is the complete polar opposite of me. She's calling out all the BS. She's calling out all the stuff that's not good in the industry, the bad, the ugly. I tend to be a fan. I tend to be very optimistic. I tend to point out the positive. In 13 years, am I going to be more like her? Well, you're going to have to watch the show for 13 more years to find out, but we'll definitely see. So she's got a much bigger following than I do. She has more podcasts. She's been on the radio. So I just hope that I can hang in this conversation with her. But please welcome my guest, Kristen Yoder, founder of Soil to the Oil, the Cannabis BS Detector. And I couldn't even write down the amount of shows that you do anymore. So talk to us about your story. You have been in the cannabis industry for 13, 14 years now, and you've seen all the good, bad, ugly, and you're at a point where you've had it and you're calling everything out. I'm sure there's a chain of events that got you here, but just tell us what brought you to this place and why you're doing this now.
Sure. So I'm going on 15 years in the cannabis industry. Yeah, and in Los Angeles. So, it's one thing to be in the industry, but it's another to be in the most corrupt, bullshit, largest market in the world, largest illegal cannabis market in the world. We can't even say largest legal market because our state has failed at blanket adoption with legalization. So we actually have a very shitty legalization in California, which is one of the many reasons why I am the way I am now. So I started in 2005 as a medical patient, and the first time I walked into a dispensary, I was just like, oh my God, is this real? And the second time I walked in, I was like, hey, do you need help? Because I would love to work here. And they did, and that was the beginning of the end. I worked there for 5 years. Doing everything, managing the dispensary, purchasing, and everything that LA is going through right now as far as licensing, this shit happened a decade ago. So in 2007, the city did the same thing. They put everyone that wanted a license, and my dispensary was the first dispensary in the city of Los Angeles. So we jumped through all these hoops, and we had to send a letter to everyone within 1,000-foot radius, letting them know that we're there, giving them a number to call to file complaints if they ever have any. We couldn't be within 1,000-foot radius of special use areas like schools, churches, anything like that. So it was a ton of shit. And I had to register personally as a dispensary manager with the LAPD Narcotic Division. Give them my fingerprints as a dispensary manager. Yeah. And then they got locked up in approving licenses, and they decided to go ahead and do a lottery. And that's literally what they're going to do again now with the social equity applicants a decade later. People don't understand, this is a long, long, long game. This is not quick. The money is not to be made in the first, I don't know, 1 to 3 years. It's just so freaking expensive. So I was at the dispensary for 5 years. I got burnt out. It was me and one other girl the entire time. And we would have 60, 70 people a day. And that was for 5 years. It was too much politically and everything like that. So I stopped, and I learned how to grow cannabis. I apprenticed under a grower, and then I worked in a warehouse. And the warehouse is when I realized that growing is a lot of hard work. It's laborious work, and I do not like doing labor. And shout out to the growers, they are so underappreciated. So I was there 2 years, and then I went to an edible company that was one of the largest in California at the time. And I started off doing supply chain management, eventually ran operations. And while I was there, I helped formulate 11 new products. And that was awesome. But then we got raided. And then we got raided again. And by the second time, there were no operations to manage. So I took that as time to leave, obviously. So then I went to work for an analytical testing lab that I worked with while I was at the edible company. And I started doing project management with them. And then that's when I learned about terpenes and the indica and sativas bullshit, which I've always considered myself an educator. Like I dispel bullshit. Like it is my life's mission to educate people properly about cannabis. And to figure out that for 5 years, I was like totally bullshitting people. It's like, I feel that for the rest of my life, I have to make up for that. And we were making a terpene training kit at the lab. So that's when I started doing terpene classes. And I was with the lab for a year, and then I wanted to try consulting. And so I did management consulting for a year. And that's actually how I met Robert and got into C Lab Los Angeles. And I was actually the first person, that was when Peter Holsworth came from Florida out to LA to start C Lab LA chapter. I was the first person he reached out to. So I made some introductions, and then that just rolled into its own thing, which, I mean, we had a blast. We had so many fun times, and it gave me a reason to, you know, go network and get out there, because I mean, this might surprise people, but I'm like a homebody cat lady. I just like to smoke my cannabis and, you know, hang out at home. So it was a really great way to get out and meet like bigger players and get to know everybody better. That was really awesome. So I hated consulting, so I quit that. And then I started strategic advising, the difference being consultants do your work for you. You hire them to do your business plan, to implement your ERP system or whatever. As a strategic advisor, I'm like your best friend for hire. I've got your back. I'm above your lawyers and I'm above everyone else. Like, I'm the one you come to when you have questions about anything that you're worried about. And I will make sure that you have the information you need to succeed, because I have your best interest in mind. But I'm not doing your homework for you. Like, that's not my job, you know? So that's where I'm at, doing strategic advising, teaching classes, and then, yeah, my podcasts and my radio show.
So you've done a ton over your time in cannabis. I mean, with the first 5 years being within the industry walls itself, you know, feet on the ground, touching the plant, scars on your back from all the bad stuff that happened at the beginning of the industry. You know, you say that when you learned about growing, that it was a lot of hard work and that's not something you wanted to do. I mean, you just keep inventing a new job for yourself, and something that things seem to work out for you, right? And I would imagine that it's just being true to yourself that you're able to accomplish these things. Now, let me ask you a question. I'm assuming you don't have background in management consulting or being a consultant or any of these things. This is all just kind of self-taught, right?
Like, literally, my background is I have a GED because I moved to an Eskimo village at 16 and their high school was like 3 people, and that was like not going to happen. So I got my GED, and then I got my hairdressing license when I was 18. So I was a hairdresser before I started at the dispensary. So I've taught myself literally everything. When I went into growing, I'm a student, I'm a sponge of whoever. I'm always looking to learn something new, and I love growing at home. So I thought, you know, oh, well, I love growing at home. This will be cool. But like, it sucked so bad to try and fight. I mean, dude, once you have pests, and it's just a freaking nightmare. And I swear to God, like, I was working for the mafia, the Russian mafia in the Valley. So it was like not cool at all. So I was glad to leave that. But then when I got a job at the edible company, I had never even sat at a desk before, let alone like had any background using Microsoft Office or anything. So I had to teach myself Excel. I mean, no one even told me what my job was. This is a very common theme in my career, is that I had to figure it all out on my own.
Yeah.
I call it baptism by the fire. Like, I don't have an option to fuck around because things have to get done. So I had to teach myself supply chain management and inventory. And I mean, product development and R&D, like, I don't have a food background. I don't have a chemistry background. I don't have a project management background. These are all things I had to develop to do my job correctly. So yeah, everything I've done is self-taught. And I feel that that is by far the best way to learn. Like, I learned how to do QuickBooks because I mean, I was like, oh my God, I was traumatized by it. I spent so many nights trying to figure out why things weren't adding up. Like, it was crazy. So I'm trying to teach other people from my experiences. That's where I arrived at with strategic advising. Is that's not something you get taught at school. Like, this is me advising you based on my large breadth of experience on how to cover your ass and make sure that you're not going to get put in the wrong situations or work with the wrong people. And I don't think up until 2 years ago, like the last year or so, people just didn't recognize what I did. They didn't understand what a bullshit detector is. But I guarantee you, after 1 year in this industry, you will appreciate what I do, which is just tell it like it is. I know a lot of people are like, God, I wish I met you and before I spent all this money. But guess what? Like, no one listens. I can tell you, like, don't touch that. That's hot. But you're going to burn yourself anyways. I'm the same way. I had to learn by getting burned. But that's why I'm so like, dude, no, it's so expensive. Like, you don't have to waste all your money to learn a lesson. You could just pay me a fraction of that and save it and be successful. You know?
I mean, yeah, 100%. I mean, I've seen a ton of bad things. I've only been in this industry, what, now, a year and a half now, and you start to see some of them, but there are some good sides to the industry as well, too. I mean, listen, in any other industry in this country, I don't know if you'd be able to create the career path that you did for yourself, right? To be a strategic advisor, even, or a consultant, you would have to have an Ivy League degree or a top school. You'd have to have this resume. So I think that's one of the shining lights that we can put on this industry, that experience is appreciated, at least in the right areas, right? Now, you know, you may not be able to not,
with the right companies, because there are still, to this day, I don't think that I could get a job at the bigger companies because I don't have a college degree and they require that, which I think is kind of bullshit. Because honestly, one of the things I've hated the most about legalization is that it's basically kicking all of the cannabis people out of the industry that we have done and put our hearts and blood into for so long, that we don't meet the requirement. Like, what is that, you know? So even now, like, yeah, I'm so lucky I was able to forge my career, but my career was forged in the illicit market, not the legal market. I don't know. If I didn't make up my position as a strategic advisor, I don't know how I could actually work in the cannabis industry without having a CPG background, without having a college degree, without having any corporate experience whatsoever. I don't know if it's even possible nowadays to be able to get into the industry like that. So, I mean, I'm really lucky in that sense. I'm very lucky.
Well, I mean, you're a hard worker and you know what you want, which has definitely led to you doing what you do. I think there needs to be a mix of corporate people and the traditional cannabis people in this industry. I think that's the best way to go forward. I agree with you 100% that it's bullshit that the people that have been in this industry, and it's the reason that it is around today in the form that it is, can't participate. That should not happen. I think, you know, that we have the opportunity as an industry to welcome those people in and make it a meritocracy, right? Make it so whoever is the best at their job is going to get that, whether you came from the illicit market or whether you came from the corporate side, and just whoever's best for the job, put them in that place, right? I'm sure there are plenty of people in the illicit market that all they've wanted to do their whole life is go straight. They just wanted to do what they do every day and do it legally, not have to look over their backs. But I don't see that big of a problem with people from corporate backgrounds that are cannabis fans and advocates coming in here and bringing their expertise to the industry to help. I don't want to say normalize it because it doesn't mean normalize it, but bring it into the general public. I mean, do you think that there's a mix there?
Normalize it. Well, So, a couple things. It's funny you say a meritocracy. Specifically, I always say, this ain't no fucking meritocracy. Okay? Like, this isn't about who's the best at what they do and who has the best heart. This is political and this is capitalism. And unfortunately, God, even more now than before, is there is a million people that want one job. That means that they can get the best of the best at a very low price because people want in the industry. So it's not a meritocracy. The fact that I have this background, let me tell you, I struggle to get paid well, period. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that I have more experience than practically everybody. Like, it doesn't matter that I know as much as I know, I'm still not going to get paid the same as some Wall Street guy, period. That's just the way it is. It's not a meritocracy. As far as corporate people that love cannabis getting into the industry, we as an industry have to evolve into being a grown-up business where we are run like businesses. We don't have to reinvent the wheel on anything. Cannabis is an agricultural commodity. This shit exists already. The only difference between cannabis and everything else is that it's more than just a plant. It's a culture. It's a lifestyle. It's religious for some. It's medical. It's recreational. It encompasses so many different aspects that is the difference. But when it comes to business, there's no difference. The thing is business people, the business owners that get into this from other industries think they know better than us about our plants. But look, I wouldn't just like go into the baking industry and be like, oh yeah, well, I eat bread, so obviously I can run your business. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you don't do that. So in this industry, I mean, I see on Indeed or Glassdoor, they're not really even caring if people have a background with cannabis. And I think that it's really important to have both corporate and cannabis because
I agree.
Because you have to. But that doesn't mean that that's the way it's working out. I mean, look at how many of these corporations failed because their entire play was on mergers and acquisitions. This is not fucking Wall Street. Okay, this is totally different. And at this point now, with a pandemic, we're approaching our next Great Depression economically. We're going to see a massive, massive consolidation. And unfortunately, less and less heart in the industry. That's just a fact because people with heart don't do very well in this industry. You just don't.
So I kind of agree with that, but my question, we look at the people who kind of came out and they didn't have heart, or the people who came out and went too fast, too strong, and they spent money like they were a tech company. They spent money like they were Uber. You know, we don't have to hide. I know that you're not a big fan of MedMen, and
MedMen.
You know, and they're one of them. But I think there's a crop of companies coming up behind them that are growing and starting to do things the right way. You don't think that the markets are going to weed out the people that aren't in this for the right reasons? I mean, look at MedMen.
What are the right reasons? Tell me that. What are the right reasons in your
opinion? I think right now the biggest consumers of the cannabis industry are the people who are in the cannabis industry and the people who are around the cannabis industry. So in that sense, I feel like the people who are spending their money in this industry as patients or clients or customers, whatever you want to call it, are choosing who's going to be around and who's not. MedMen did what they did and people didn't really go there. They got a lot of tourism business. I don't think anybody in Venice Beach who lives in Venice Beach is going to MedMen to buy their shit. I think you live there, so you can disagree with me if you want. You're there, you can tell me. But I have this feeling, and maybe it's the optimism in me, that the consumers are going to control who succeeds and who doesn't. Maybe not immediately, but over time. And the people that are just greedy corporate and they're putting out shitty product and they have that Walmart look and feel to them, the market's going to take care of them eventually. I mean, there has to be a Walmart at some point. It's going to happen. But I think that, you know, you live in Venice, you're a connoisseur, if you will. You're going to pick the place that has the best product, and the people that are like you are going to go there too. So I think over time we can fix this with our pockets.
So while I'm 1000% agree that it is up to the consumers to vote with your dollar. And that's how we support businesses. You should always support businesses that you appreciate, that do things right. However, like I said, we're about to hit an economic depression. Like, people are fucked. They don't have any money.
Yeah.
I mean, unemployment
right.
got cut out. So while I would love to support a brand that costs more money because they spend more money to make a better product, I can't afford it. And in LA, I mean, LA is crazy. We have, within the city of Los Angeles, 88 neighborhoods, and every neighborhood is different. And most of those neighborhoods that are like in the Valley or in South Central or in most places, people buy by the price, not the quality. I mean, God, oh my God, I saw people smoke the gnarliest shit because it was cheap. Or they would buy the cheap shit and then go sell it to their friends and make a little profit. You know what I'm saying? But it, like what you're saying is, it's the same argument for craft cannabis, that people will pay a bigger premium for better cannabis. And yeah, people with money will. Are there going to be enough of those people supporting higher premium brands to keep them going? I don't know, dude. Right now, NorCal is on fire all the fuck over the place. What happens when things start burning down? They go out of business. Like, a lot of companies are going to be subject to volatility outside of their control. And I think that at this point, there again, it's not a meritocracy. This is just economics. People will spend what they have and they'll buy what is closest to them and what is cheapest, period. Like, that's just a fact. So at this point, I think that a lot of businesses are getting to a point where they have to sell to survive, to keep their family fed. You know, like, things are getting really hard for a lot of people. And it is points in history like this, when things start getting really tight, this is when the vulture capitalists come in and they start buying all these companies up. And I can't even hate on anyone that has to sell out right now to survive. We have to do what we have to do. But I mean, wanting more and wanting better is not the same as doing it and getting it. You know what I'm saying?
No, I do know what you're saying, and I definitely see where you're coming from. Let me ask you a question because, you know, every market seems to be different. And the funny thing about California is, from a brand and logistic and everything else standpoint, they tend to be the innovators in this space. You guys have some of the best brands out there, stores, marketing, what have you. But from a regulatory standpoint, from a taxation standpoint, it's not good. And it's not what's in the best interest of the industry. Are you seeing this in other markets besides just California, or are a lot of these California specific problems?
Oh, I mean, states don't legalize cannabis because they care about people or like the plant or the culture. They want money, they want tax money. So a lot of states like California and others overtaxate in the beginning because they're trying to justify it in the first place. And all you ever hear about is, oh, such and such state brought in $80 million in tax revenue in the first month of legal sales and things like that. It's about tax revenue. Regulators don't give a fuck about the people and the plant and the culture and integrity. They're just trying to cover their ass. So yeah, I mean, every state that goes legal hits a shit ton of the same mistakes by overtaxation, by over-regulating, by changing compliance all the time. Companies fail because they can't afford to stay compliant. I mean, I remember Washington State, the edible company I was working with, they had to get their building all built out and customized up to code. And then they changed the code, and it would have costed $150,000 to fix the building again. So they had to just move. I know people that, you know, packaging requirements change. You could sink tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands into your packaging because the state said you needed child-proof packaging, and then they changed that and say only the exit bag has to be child-proof. Then, like, this company just spent all of this money trying to comply. Like, states don't make it easy for cannabis companies, except is it Oklahoma, who just basically was like, everyone gets a license, you get a license, you get a license, and then just
I think it was Oklahoma,
yeah, then just let people like, duke it out. But at the same time, what does that do? That just bottoms out the market. Then you're going to have a glut of supply, like what happened in Oregon, where all of a sudden they licensed too much grows. There was too much weed for the market. And now everyone's losing money. I mean, the prices bottomed out. The growers go out of business because they can't sell their plant for enough to recoup the losses. So it's, again, like, I mean, I've never been a fan of legalization. I say deschedule it and get the government the fuck out of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I agree, we need quality control. We need a way to track and trace things, absolutely. But the levels of, like in California, we have some of the most strict pesticide screening levels. But it's not even, it doesn't even make sense how strict they are. And that's the thing, like, none of this has to make sense. It's about money, period. So I don't know, dude.
I agree with that. And, I think my mindset is more so, I don't give a shit why they did it. I'm just glad that they did it and they gave people the opportunity to enter into this industry. Now, I admit that it's completely fucked up and it's not good by any stretch of the imagination, but not too long ago, it was purely illegal and you couldn't do it at all. I mean, just for having a little bit on you, you see the amount of people that are in jail now just for a minor possession charge. And that's complete bullshit. So we've made a little bit of progress. It's still fucked up, but I think
have we though? Because in California, the police are still raiding grows daily. I mean, in one city, Anza, they have brought in the National Guard to go after illegal grows. But here's the thing, people are like, okay, cool, then get a license. Like, that's the whole point of legalization, is to make it possible for cannabis businesses to operate legally. Well, yeah, if you live somewhere will actually allow commercial cannabis in the first place, and a lot of places won't. Or if they make it so that the licensing is actually affordable to go after in the first place, but most
that I
places
definitely
aren't.
agree with.
If politicians weren't getting bought out and everything being a total scam where it's non-refundable license application fees that you're not going to get back, when they already knew who they were going to give their licenses to. Look, legalization is not an entry point for everyone. It's an entry point for very few highly capitalized people. That's it. Like, so in California, 2/3 of the state, it's not legal. It's still not legal. So people are still getting arrested for it. I mean, in New York State, MedMen and Acreage had written a letter to the governor about the fallacy of home grows, because they don't want legalization that allows people to grow at home, because then why would people buy their weed? They wouldn't. So again, I mean, no, I don't accept just any old legalization. That's a lie. That's being sold to us by greedy politicians and by these shady companies that are getting in there and, with a ton of money, being able to buy off politicians and to cheat. That's who's winning right now. That's who wins. It's the cheaters. So look, California was thriving before legalization because it was like a gray market is what we called it, medical. It was very vague. There was like no regulations. And yeah, there was some shitty quality pesticide laden, disgusting product out there for sure. And not having that, requiring testing, I love that. That's great. But they fucked the entire state. They ruined it, like literally ruined it. And no one who wants to get into the industry can legally, unless they live somewhere where that's available. And it's not available anywhere unless you have millions of dollars. So no, I don't accept that. I don't accept legalization unless it means that it's no longer a crime. And to me, that's decriminalization. And I would much prefer people have the right to grow their own, or to have it on them in their possession and not have legal sales. Because then we could just grow it ourselves and sell it to each other and fuck these big players coming in and exploiting the industry and putting more stains on it. It wasn't the people that started this industry that made it so shitty. and so corrupt. No, we're the ones getting kicked out of the industry. So no, I don't support it. I don't support it.
I'm glad that you don't support it, because I think, it's kind of, I don't want to say the responsibility, but it's the responsibility of people who are in this industry and the people that want to see it thrive to continue to get and educate the general public on the benefits of this industry, and like you're already doing, the issues with this industry. And they're not hearing it from the politicians. They're not hearing it from the people that are corrupt and are in place. They need to hear it from the people that are that love this plant, that believe in it, that are educating people on it. I think you do a good job of that. And I think, in my opinion, I am glad that there is some kind of a legal market, that there are a few people in pockets of each area that are doing things the right way, that we need to showcase and put a spotlight on them. I mean, if I want to take a page out of your book, listen, I'm a huge fan of Jim Belushi. His new show, Growing Belushi, is bullshit. It leans into the stoner stereotype, right? And we don't need the first legal grow that has a reality show on TV leaning into that stereotype. It's not a good look on the industry, and that kind of shit pisses me off too, right? I want to show a nice, sustainable cannabis farm that has people like yourself working on it, that love this industry, that want to support it. And I think that's what we need to showcase to the general public and say, this is what the cannabis industry is. And these are all the problems that were wrong with it. We need your help, general public, to make this right, to make this an industry that you guys can be proud of and want to participate in. Because I think at some point in time, the general public's going to change, and that stigma is going to break. They may not be smoking. They may not be smoking joints and buying flowers, but they're going to be big CBD consumers. They're going to consume it in a medical form, through pill form, and that kind of stuff. And we need some smart people to come in to figure out standard doses and everything else. But I think when we look at what legalization is, and we look at the end of alcohol prohibition, there's still a ton of work to be done to make it normal, to make it right, like you say. And I think you're a leader in that spot, exposing the bullshit and doing that. But there is a part of me that's just happy that there is something there that we can mold into what it should be, than trying to make it perfect right off the bat.
I would love to see that happen. I would, but at this point,
you're leading it. You're leading it, though.
When it comes to legalization measures, though, it's so important for people to read the small print. The small print is where they hide the details, and the devil is in the details. And I did not vote for Prop 64 in California because it was bullshit. But a lot of people fell for it because they're like, it should be legal. No, it should not be a crime in the first place. Like, the word legalization, keyword legal, that means laws. An insane set of laws and regulations that are very hard to stick to for a lot of different places, cost-wise alone, compliance. I mean, I said in the first podcast episode I did on my podcast, The Cannabis Detector, with a C-Lab member, was, if you want to make money in the industry, become a lawyer. That's where the money is. Period. That's where the money is. You need a lawyer for all this shit because it's so overregulated. Look, I am glad that people have safe access. I support that. And I'm glad that people are getting let out of jail when they do. And I'm glad that people aren't getting put in jail for it when they aren't.
And it needs to happen more, but...
I agree, but we cannot just accept the first thing that's handed to us. Because look, man, California got destroyed. And we are so far from making it better. They're not changing it for the better. So no, I don't say we just accept whatever they give us at first. I say we have to keep fighting for something better before we vote for that shit. Because it's really hard to turn back the mass amount of fuckery that they start with. It's so hard.
So how do we educate people in order to fix this? Is it about voting? Is it about finding new politicians? Is it about getting to the politicians and educating them?
It's about critical thinking. It's about critical thinking on all parts. First of all, I mean, dude, look, people try. I mean, fuck, for California, to create the regulations in the first place, the state did like a tour where they put out their first set of rules, and then they had everybody in the industry, all these stakeholders, give their input on what they think. They went around, they did a talking tour. They had other politicians from regulated states come in and talk about their troubles that they went through. And
it looked like they were really trying. I mean, I even did a podcast in 2017 with my ex-business partner on her podcast with the communications director of the Bureau of Cannabis Control in California. And he had said, this was before it passed, that we recognize that California is too big to fail. That's why we're trying so hard. What the fuck happened then? Because they got warned about so many things and they did shit anyways. And right at the last minute, they changed things. So in the beginning, legalization was supposed to give growers a 5-year chance to make money before they would allow legal or super big grows, anything over 22,000 feet. But then, like at the last minute, they changed it so that people could grow or could purchase licenses next to each other, called license stacking. So they immediately allowed massive growth. They immediately allowed outside investors and outside money coming into the state. They didn't wait for the state to allow the people in the state already whose careers and livelihoods were based on this. They didn't protect them whatsoever. So instead, they just started it off incredibly predatory and wiped out everything. I mean, the growers in NorCal are totally screwed. They don't get paid enough. They don't make enough. They have to answer to over 20 fucking regulatory bodies to grow. And it's a fucking plant. Like, are you insane? You know, like no one else has to deal with these kinds of things. So, I mean, I know growers that voted for legalization because all they want to do is pay taxes and operate above board. They don't want to have to fear helicopters and all of that. That's why they voted for it. And guess what? They can't get licenses where they're at because their county decided they don't want to do it. So they voted for the very thing that has kept them in the same position they were in before legalization, except now everyone wants to say, oh, well, it's fine if you get raided and arrested because you're growing illegally. There's no opportunity to grow legally in the first place. So, yeah. Like, how does that work? You know? So, yeah, politicians are being educated. They don't listen because in the end, they're about money. And corruption takes over everything with legal cannabis. It's just the next commodity to be exploited by wealthy people. And I just don't like that. It makes me sad to see. That's why I don't want legalization. I want it descheduled. It shouldn't be considered a drug in the first place, and make it a lot less profitable of a thing to exploit, and leave it to the people that actually care about it. You know, medical patients in California are the ones who have suffered the worst because now they don't have any access where they live in the other 2/3 of the state. It's a cannabis desert because those counties got rid of medical cannabis too. They lumped it in and said no commercial cannabis, medical or recreational, none of it. So legalization literally got rid of legal access for most people. And I don't know if other states are going to be like that, but every single place has its own issues. And I think it's up to the voters to make sure that what they're voting for is going to benefit them. Here's another thing. California taxes, like 85% of the tax revenue from cannabis goes to enforcement, not health, not schools, nothing positive. It goes towards enforcement. Well, at this point, there's so few legal operating businesses that they are spending more money enforcing all the counties that won't allow legal cannabis than if they just fucking licensed people. It's like, I think personally, my answer to this is if you want to opt out of regulating cannabis in your area, then you should have to pay the state in revenue from whatever a fee, because you're literally allowing an illegal industry to blossom under your lack of action. And if there's going to be legalization, then it needs to be adopted everywhere, and it needs to be fair.
I actually really like what you just said, that if you want to vote against legalization in your municipality, that there should be some kind of fee that you should pay. And I can't imagine that the government wouldn't be happy about that because they're getting more money, right? So those people are going to be taxed for something that they don't have. At least maybe they'll get it in their municipality now.
Yeah, there's no reason not to. Yeah, I mean, when the option is you create a program where you are actually taking control of the industry, you are getting tax revenue, you're being responsible for your community. When you don't do that, it doesn't mean that cannabis goes away. No, it's still there, but now you don't get any benefits from it. And you make it expensive to have because you have to try and enforce it. So it just doesn't make sense to me why these counties and cities that don't allow cannabis are costing the state so much more money than they could have just brought in. Like, what politician isn't motivated by money? That's why I think they should have to pay for their inaction. But is that going to happen? No, because this is not a meritocracy. So things don't work out like that, you know? Though I looked at Colorado, and I'm not totally familiar with how or what their industry was like before legalization, but at least they seem to have gotten it together pretty well. I don't really hear too many Coloradans complaining about not being able to operate or being too overly taxed or whatever. And I'm sure they had their road bumps, but they put their money towards schools and education. And health insurance and things like that. At least if you're going to profit off of cannabis, put it towards something good. You know?
Yeah.
I could support that.
Do you think that California is in the state that it's in because it had a very thriving, as you said, gray market before quote unquote legalization came in? I mean, you know, California's been known for cannabis forever, right? You think of cannabis?
In 96, they passed the Compassionate Use Act, and that's where medical cannabis came from. So it wasn't just an illegal market, it was a medical market that was just kind of, you know, you call yourself medical and you get a good lawyer and you require patient release forms and stuff like that. And we all kind of just made shit up on our own because no one was regulating it. We were thriving back then, but the state didn't get anything ever. Look, every cannabis company I've worked for in LA has been raided. I mean, I've been through a DEA raid at the dispensary I was at. The edible company I was at got raided twice. The lab I was at before I went there, they had gotten raided. And this was not even necessary. It's just, I don't know what the solution is, honestly. I just wish everyone could grow at home or to know someone that grows and get their weed from them. Because love is a key important ingredient in cannabis that you just don't get in commercial flower, you know?
I agree with that, but my fear is it's always going to lean back towards corporate, right? So if we have everybody growing at home, there's going to be some guy who's got a few bucks in his pocket that starts knocking on people's doors and says, hey, I'm going to buy your weed for X every time. You know that every crop you're going to have is going to be purchased. It's going to be the same price. You know how much you're going to make. And he's going to knock on the next door, and you knock on the next door. And next thing you know, there's 20, 30, 40 people in a neighborhood all kicking it up to this guy, and he's selling it for a profit. I mean, I think it's natural progression. So I don't know.
But when you grow yourself, there's more money to be made by selling at retail yourself than by selling at wholesale to someone else. So, yeah.
But there's also more work.
I mean, most people that grow at home, I mean, what I'm thinking is like under our medical program, you are allowed to have 6 mature plants. That would be enough weed to help myself. And maybe I could sell some to my friends if I needed it. I'm not talking about having people doing massive growth. I'm saying keep the money in the people's hands and fuck the government, you know? And if, look, yeah, dude, this is capitalism, even when it's just us selling it to each other. But at least we're doing it to ourselves, you know what I'm saying? And we're not having it done to us by all of these people that had nothing to do with cannabis. I mean, John fucking Boehner just, oh my God, dude. You know, to see this guy go, oh my God, I hate acreage. To see him go around and preach legalization, he doesn't give a fuck about legalization. They wanted that because then they were going to get a multi-billion-dollar buyout from Canopy. You know, I don't want these people in the industry, period. I don't want them to profit from it. I don't want them to be part of it. They have nothing to do with it. I would rather the homies selling to someone else and making money that grew it himself. Like, I'm cool with that. You know what I'm saying? But at this point, no one wins. The growers don't win at all under legalization. They're totally fucked because the prices are too low and the fees are too high. So, I mean, it's just not a win there's no winning right now for the growers, especially. And like, we wouldn't have an industry without them. Yet they are the bottom of the rung as far as how they get treated and how much they get paid.
Yeah, I mean, what I would like to see is I would like to see the barrier for entry for people that get actual licenses get lowered extremely, and maybe even some kind of scholarship system, if you will, right? You know, if you have some kind of experience, or if you're in an extenuating circumstance, or even if it's a social equity play, to be able to have people that can fund these licenses for the right people and get the real entrepreneurs in this space. I'm not opposed to someone coming from a humble growing background, getting their license and busting their ass to become the next what MedMen should have been from a corporate standpoint. If we get a story like that, I think it's incredible that somebody can change their lives that way. But I think it all goes back to the barrier of entry, because there is no way that you can, for $5,000, $10,000, or even, you know, which is not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. But if you really want to get into this industry, I imagine you can figure out a way to scrap it together to get into this industry and start your business, right? I don't want to see, like, hey, listen, I live in Florida. You know how much it costs to get a license in Florida right now? At least $35 million. $35 million. And that's just for me to get a license. If I want to compete with TrueLeave or anybody else that's got a license in Florida already, it's at least another $35 million in cost to get me up and going. So you're looking at $70 million, $80, $90 million to have a cannabis company in Florida. I know Wall Street guys that won't do that.
Yeah. Well, this legalization is not for cannabis people. It's for capitalists. Period. I mean, period. That's just it. No matter what, you have to have capital investments. And those people usually don't give a fuck about the plant. You know, there's just, I don't know, dude. This is why it's like, I hit massive career burnout after the pandemic hit. It was like, not only am I the BS detector in cannabis, it's in everything. It's in every fucking aspect of life. So all I see, I'm just like blessed with this, blessed with this vision of just seeing through shit. And it's too much. There's just too much bad shit going on now that I don't even know. I don't even know, dude. Like, I'm scared for the future of our industry because I see a lot more good people getting wiped out economically. And we're going to end up like Canada next year, where we have like 12 massive companies that own everything. But it's like Scott's Miracle Grow. They created Hawthorne Garden Division or whatever. They go and they buy Botanicare, General Hydroponics, Gavita Lights, all these different things that if you weren't paying attention, you wouldn't know that the company that you've been using, you are now literally giving money to the fucking devil. But they don't change the name. So how do you know when like Acreage comes along, they start buying up all of these companies, but they don't change the name. So you wouldn't know who's actually backing it and who's getting the money from it. That's what I see happening, is that people are going to get desperate and they're going to have to sell out. And we're not going to know about it because who's going to talk about it? And overnight, one day, we're going to wake up and realize that our entire industry got consolidated during these times because people are running out of money, but not the wealthy people. And then you can come in and buy people pennies on the dollar. Why wouldn't you?
It could go back the other way. I mean, if we look at beer now, right? We have this craft brew revolution where, and I know that the big guys are starting to buy up craft brews, so maybe that's not the best situation. But I feel like it's I feel like at some point it's going to get big, and then people they're going to go back to the black market. They're not going to go to these stores, and I feel like it might go back the other way. I don't know, but I feel to me, I think you've got to have some kind of sliver of optimism because you're still here. You're still educating people on the plant. You're still taking the energy that you have and calling out the BS, which is a good thing for this industry, right? You're pointing out the problems, and imagine you're not doing it just to complain, but you're hoping that people will hear you and try to make change. So there's got to be a sliver of optimism that you have.
I have never been an optimist, like ever, you know? So actually,
now I know why you and Rob got along.
Yeah, right. I know. No, so I kind of just disappeared from online. Like once mid-March hit and then California shut down, then I just kind of allowed myself to burn the fuck out and then go deep, deep depression. And after, I don't know, around June, I realized that like this is the new normal. Like things aren't going to go back to the way they were, and I can no longer justify just allowing myself to sleep all day and be depressed and eating shitty food and comforting myself like that. So a friend of mine, Lauren Mundell, she created a social media app for cannabis called Hi Curious. And it's like a really like a wellness focused social media where people are just mad supportive. There's like no news, there's no trolls, there's no negative shit. It's just people that love the plant that are supporting each other in their business goals and their wellness goals, etc. And I was trying to think of a way I could support it. And I thought, like, wouldn't it be funny to track, like, seeing me trying to go from hell to well, like going from like just seeing nothing but negativity and being like the curmudgeon BS detector that everybody knows to someone who's like, well, mentally, like healthily, able to cope with things and not be so depressed. And so I've spent the last 2 months, I mean, every week I do a video check-in. Like I set goals at the beginning of the week and I talk about my struggles or my strategies on how I'm trying to get outside more and like, you know, all these different things. And over the past 8 weeks, there's been like, I mean, I was totally negative crying. Like I couldn't even handle going on LinkedIn. It was just too much, dude. Like even now I'm still struggling to get back into the same shit every day on LinkedIn like I was before, because it's just why in the first place. But that's the thing that I've been working on. I put my podcast on hold, so I'm doing my Hell to Well thing where I'm just trying to like document a born cynic trying to become at least a balanced person. Because bro, like things are so fucked in the world right now that I have to learn to see things or to be able to cope in a healthier way. And I'm all about teaching people as I learn, so that's what I've been doing on that app. But no, I'm not an optimist. This is something I have to work on really hard, is trying to at least see the positives on a daily basis. If I can't in the future, at least I can spend each day thinking about what I'm grateful for to keep me going. But I mean, it's my passion of helping people. That's what's keeping me going. It's not optimism, you know?
Well, it's good to have a passion to help people. As far as putting your podcast on hold, everything you're saying about, you know, being locked at home, having it on all that, 100% true. It's hard. You know, you struggle to do your job every day. You struggle to go through that Groundhog Day where it's not normal. You're not around a lot of people. You're not getting the energy from everybody. And you tell you what keeps me sane is this right here, having conversations just like this. Granted, I'm looking at my TV. We're not actually in the same room and having this real conversation, but something like this is fun as hell to me. It's the highlight of my day and it keeps me sane. So, you know, if I can give any bit of advice, I would lean into the podcast. Even though you are a cynic on the show, I'm sure you enjoy a lot of those conversations.
It's with my podcast, honestly, it's the show notes. I fucking hate doing show notes. I hate listening to myself. So in order for me to do my show notes, I have to listen. And I gotta tell you, dude, like I have 5 episodes I'm sitting on that are really good. I did 2 episodes that I titled Fuck Legalization with me and my friend who's in Florida, Brad Slaughter, going off, like me debating why I'm against legalization on a federal level. I've got an awesome one with Emma Chasen where we just nerded out on terpenes and cannabis science. And I've got a great one on due diligence, but I had to listen to myself and it fucking traumatized me. And I still haven't released those episodes because I'm like, oh my God, is that what I sound like? Like, I can't even, it was horrible. It was traumatic. Like, I don't want to have to listen to myself. So until I can get some help on someone else listening to me and helping me with my show notes, it's like really a struggle for me. Talking to people is cool. Listening to myself sucks so much.
I agree.
So tough.
I agree with that. We have a guy who I've become friends with who does all that for me. He's a senior at the University of Miami. So I can tell you, I don't think I've listened to a full episode of my show, and we've done over 70 of them. I don't know if I've listened to a full episode.
If I had the help, I would totally do it. But at this point, I do it all on my own. So no, it's not appealing to me. Like
I
this,
get it.
my plants, like this is how I keep my sanity, you know, is with my plants, with my foster cat. I mean, I live in LA. I live in Venice Beach. I have a dope sun deck that I go out on. I go for walks and stuff. Like, I'm just trying to get healthy myself because at this point, I have no control over what's going on in the world or anything. All I can control is the way I see things and the way that I function in the world. So, yeah, I love doing podcasts and I love coming on and talking to others. And I love working with my clients and being able to advise them and help them. And I love teaching classes, you know, but it's just, it doesn't translate into optimism for the future.
No, I understand. And honestly, I can have this back and forth with you for a very long time. I really enjoy this conversation. I want to talk about the things that you're doing professionally, you know, the being the advisor and doing the terpene education classes. So when I read what you talk how you describe yourself as an advisor, is your job is to have someone come to you and you poke holes in their idea. You point out everything different. You take the role of the contrarian. I imagine that's a very valuable tool for people trying to get into this industry.
Yeah, you know, the thing is I prefer to work with people in the idea stage because that's when I can help you. That's when I can point you in the right direction so you start off on a solid foundation. I don't really like working with companies that have already put a bunch of money into their operations because if there are things they need to change, they're not so apt to do that. But the problem is that people in the idea stage are not necessarily ready to financially commit to anything, including hiring me to advise them. So it's, I mean, I am not making a shit ton of money by any means. But I have found that since the pandemic has hit and a lot of people are losing their jobs, they want to get into the cannabis industry or to start a cannabis business. And now is the time where I can really help people where they actually recognize that they shouldn't maybe just jump all in without looking into it and doing research, because in this economic situation, you cannot afford to fuck up. You really can't. So it's easier for me to get clients now than it was before because people recognize, I think people really are starting to see how much fuckery is involved in this industry and the value of having someone that will tell you how you want it. But at the same time, usually people with a lot of money, they don't want to hear anything that goes against what they think, which is why they fail. And that sucks for them, you know? I get to choose who I work with. And while I like working with investors because I can point them to invest in good companies, I would never work with Acreage because fuck them, you know? Like, that's a thing. I could make so much more money if I didn't have morals in the people who I work with. You know, I could bring so much value to evil people, but I will never, ever help them. So, you know, I think that's another thing people need to realize. If you're a good person, you're not going to get rich. You're not going to get rich. You'll be lucky if you make it, period. You know?
I think in the long run, your morals are going to work out for you. I'd like to think that eventually, maybe not in the next 5 years, maybe not next 10 years, but soon that this industry is going to find a nice equilibrium. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be the industry that you and I want to see, but I don't think it's going to be as corporate and corrupt as it is now. I'd like to see some kind of equilibrium, and maybe that's the hopeful side of me, and that's the difference between us. But I hope your morals, I hope your morals and sticking to your moral code work out for you in the long run, because if you have the scars on your back and you're advising these people in the idea stage, and if you do enough good work, I mean, it's going to come back to you and they're going to make recommendations and you're going to get more and more clients and you are going to help be able to shape the cannabis industry the way that you want to see it. And I think that's incredible, right? And that's me just going back to optimism. So,
well, there's me strategic advising. The other thing is helping companies with their education, educating their employees, educating their sales team. That's the other thing that I'm super passionate about is these companies need to take responsibility in their role in advancing or setting back the industry. And for any company that decides to go for indica sativa hybrid as how you're going to feel, we have fucking problems. I don't want to work with you and I don't support you. That's another way that I can really make a difference. And that's why I love the clients that I do have, is because they want to be a part of making the industry better than what it is already.
Well, that's the other side of what you do too now. So you also do terpene education classes as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I could teach about anything, but yeah, terpenes, I'd say it's a mix of terpenes and critical thinking, because really, I just want to place the seed of doubt in consumers and patients to question everything that you see and ask the companies whose products you buy about their lab test results and see if they're full of shit. Because look, until people know enough to start questioning what they're seeing, we are never going to have advancement in this industry. So,
Yeah.
If there's anything I can do, it's to create more bullshit detectors. Then
Yeah.
I've done what I've come here to do.
Well, we definitely need an army of bullshit detectors, and I'll help you design that T-shirt when we get them. But
Yes.
I think it should be listen, I don't think you're doing bad things here. I love the terpene education. I think it's something that everyone needs to understand. Indica and sativa is not the classification anymore. We need to do a better job of educating the general public on cannabis. And I think the more and more people that you can recruit and the more and more people that you can educate, the better this industry is going to get, because it's all going to come from education. It needs to come from somewhere. And you're screaming at the top of the rooftops doing it. I mean, you probably have one of the biggest cannabis followings on LinkedIn, so who better to say it than you?
Yeah, I mean, I try, and there are a lot of badass people on LinkedIn, like Richard Rose. He's a fucking OG in the hemp industry. I mean, 20, 30, I don't even know. Like, so he's been in the industry forever. And there's so many other people out there that are really great, that I think it's important that we all continue to keep speaking out and pointing things out. And I see people on LinkedIn, I'll be like, oh, here comes the people with experience, talking down to the corporate businesses or whatever. It's like, yeah, we are, dude, because we know better and they don't. And this is proof. And we're just saying, see, look, this is what we're talking about. This is the example we were talking about. It's not always a fun position to be in, but it's necessary. So, I mean, I'm glad that I'm not the only one out there doing this.
No, like I said, you have a voice. You're giving these people a platform, and to continue to give them a platform, I think is the best thing that you can do, and that's how you're going to get the results that you want. So you and I have been running this show for over an hour again. That snuck up on me. Okay. So yeah, we got to the end here. Let's at least plug all your websites, plug your social media. I know it's Kristen Y on LinkedIn. Tell us how we can find you.
So it's Kristen Y if we're not connected. But yeah, Kristen Yoder on LinkedIn. If you go to linkedin.com/in/that/Kristen Yoder, that'll take you to my page. I'm on Instagram, but I rarely go on. I've really cut back on social media since the pandemic, because it's all just negative and stresses me out. But I'm the Cannabis detector on Instagram. My website is soiltotheoil.com. That's the best way to get a hold of me, is go to my website, and at the bottom there's a contact form that you can reach out to me at. And my podcast is the Cannabis Detector, which you can find on iTunes and other places. And I will release these 5 episodes I've been sitting on. I just have to finish the notes on them.
You have to now. You're getting everybody excited about them, right?
I know,
everybody who's
really
watched this episode is going through.
I know, they're really good too. It's the bane of my existence, I swear.
I will have Evan give you a call, and maybe you two can work something out, because I don't have to listen to myself because of him. So maybe we can help you out a little bit.
And then I'm also, one last thing, on Friday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm on FM radio, but if you go to knsj.org, you can listen through that website to the radio show. It's called Notes from the Underground. It's me and 3 other people. Wally Wang, he wrote the Microsoft Office for Dummies books.
Oh, nice.
And like he makes me look like an optimistic person. He's so nihilistic. It's fucking amazing. I love it. And then there's
Yeah.
Dane. He is a comedian, and Jody, she's really funny. She does PR, and we're super liberal. So if you're not liberal, don't listen to it. But you can catch me there every Friday night for the most part.
Or do listen to it and you're just going to get angry. I mean,
Yeah,
listen.
and we don't give a fuck. So yeah.
Ratings are ratings, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
go back to the old Howard Stern days. Why do you listen? I want to hear what he has to say next. Why do you hate him? I want to hear what he has to say next. So you want the people who...
And before I forget, download the Hi Curious app on iTunes or Android.
That's the social media one you were talking about?
Yeah, that's the one where you can find me on there, and you can see my previous episodes I've done of me basically doing a therapy session every week, trying to get better. And follow along with I'm providing strategies that I'm implementing myself that I've done before, and I'm tracking how I struggle and things like that. And I think that it would be beneficial for a lot of people. I know I'm not the only one struggling through things right now. So yeah, check that out as well.
All right. Awesome. Well, I appreciate all that. Listen, I had a blast. This was a great conversation. You know, I think we're more similar than we appear to be, but it's just two different points of views. But this was a very fun conversation. And I definitely want to have you back. I want to do this again, and hopefully we'll see what changes. You know, maybe I'll be more pessimistic, maybe you'll be more optimistic, or we'll see. So thank you again for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, everybody at home. This is our last live episode for the week. We're going to have 3 more recordings coming out for you next week, 3 more live episodes. Definitely tune in. You can see the entire library at youtube.com/elevateyourgrind for our live episodes, facebook.com/cannabusinessgroup. Definitely check out joinclab.com to check out all the great panels we have coming up, and we will see you next time.